Morning, this is Dave T1963. It's all over the news now over in Israel that a wayward missile or two or whatever killed some innocent civilians, and everyone's in a uproar about that. And here's the reality, folks. People in America have no clue what war is like because it's been a long time since we've had war on our shores. So the entire generation living today, if they have not been in the military and been overseas, they have no clue what war is like. Go over to Iraq, go over to Afghanistan, go over to Vietnam, go over to North Korea, go anywhere the US military has been involved in a war, and ask the locals how many people died accidentally during war. You will never find a war where casualties don't happen to innocent people on both sides. So, all this outrage is once again, the mainstream media pushes narratives to stir up emotion in people. Any death is tragic in war. That's why we should not be so eager to rush off and go to war. Never, what's funny is if you'll go and watch the results of war, very few government officials ever die in wars. Have you noticed that? Occasionally we'll take out one like Saddam Hussein, which had tragic consequences. Now, that whole region is totally unsettled now because we took out a person who was pretty brutal, but he kept the brutal different tribes of Islam and the Christians from killing each other. So, but most of the time, the people who die are the people in the military and the civilians. The people who start the wars, the governments, those people very seldom die. Okay, so you really need to turn off mainstream media news and stuff. Go over and get even some of the Muslim news, some of the Israeli news. Go to get some news coming out of Africa and all these hot spots where things are going on and stuff, and you will be blown away at the difference in what they report as opposed to what we're being told in America. Quite frankly, if you've ever been overseas in some of these cities, like in Israel and Syria and all this kind of stuff, you would be amazed at how close people live together. I think it's amazing that when they're firing these mortars and rockets and launching missiles and stuff like that, that more innocent people don't get killed. That tells me that they're taking extreme amount of caution and really thinking through what weapon system they're using when they're responding to things. Because people live a lot, in America, once again, we have a pretty large country where, the vast majority of America lives inside the major metropolitan areas. And then, probably the other third of the country, if it's that, maybe a quarter of the country, lives out in residential or out in the country with a lot of space between us. That's not how this is. Folks, Israel is a tiny country. It's smaller than most of our states here in America. And then to have that population that close together, same in Gaza, same in, whatever Palestine's defined as, all these places that are fighting and stuff, they live in close proximity to one another. So when you fire a missile and buildings collapse and concrete flies and all those kind of things, you're going to have what we call non-combatant casualties. That is just the reality of war. Anyone who's ever been around a war knows this. Okay, it's not surprising. So America, wake up. Quit listening to this fake news in America. They are pushing a narrative to rise up the emotions of the American people on both sides, whether you're pro-Palestine or pro-Israel. They're pushing narratives that trigger both sides. All right? The reality is it's governments that cause 99% of the problems. Governments or religions cause 99% of the problems in wars. But the primary cost throughout history is not the governments even to the military at some point, a lot of times the majority of casualties can be in the civilian populations, okay? And if you think America is free and clear of this, you need to go read about some of the carpet bombing we did in World War II, okay? Go read about some of the things we did over in Cambodia and Vietnam and stuff. Our hands aren't clean from this. No country is. No country that has ever been to war has clean hands when it comes to having caused loss of life to people that were totally innocent. And I'll tell you something else too, folks. There's hatred in the world. There's no doubt about that. But in my experience, from all the military travels that I did in the different countries I saw, you know what I found out? Most people, the common people in countries, they want the same things. They want to live a good life. They want their children to have a security and a good future. They want to provide for their families. They want the same things as we do. It's not the masses of people so much. It's people that get radicalized and governments that cause most of the problems. And quite honestly, most of the radicalized groups are pushed through government narratives. There's always something behind the scenes, folks. People don't just hate each other. They use news nowadays, nonstop 24/7 news, to really polarize groups and stir up emotions and anger and hatred. And we're seeing the results of this. So anyway, here in America, I just encourage people on both sides, if you think Fox News isn't pushing a narrative, you're blind. If you're on the right and you think Fox News is pushing you the truth of what's going on around the world, you have no clue. It's on both sides. Our media, people need to get this through their heads. Our media here in America is corrupt. They're not reporting the news. They're pushing narratives. They form narratives around major events to cause division and stir up emotions. And you can tell, I'll tell you how you can tell this is true. There's so many good stories of people doing awesome things throughout this world and in this country, helping feed the hungry, clothe, the poor people, doing good things. How often do you see that reported? You don't. What you see night after night, now it's 24/7. You can turn on the TV at any time in America and find news that's pushing divisive narratives. So unplug that crap, folks. Get it out of your house. Definitely don't take your news just off of general social media sites. You have to do some research and go. A lot of the news that I get is from overseas anymore, because there are news agencies throughout the world that are reporting the truth. They're not politicized like we are here in America, like they are in Europe. Russia pushes a lot of propaganda. China definitely pushes it. North Korea pushes propaganda. There's a lot of agencies coming out of Africa and stuff that push propaganda. So you got to do a little homework. But look for news sources that are presenting the truth in both sides. They're not pushing the same narrative over and over that one side's at fault 100%. When you watch news and it's always pointing the finger at these people here, this group of people is the problem, you're living a narrative, because it's just like kids when they argue. There's not always one person's 100% right and the other person's 100% wrong. The truth is both of them have a part in it. So get your news from somewhere else, folks. There's a lot going on right now in Israel, and Israel's being painted to be this horrific country. Go get your news from what actually happened when Israel was invaded. Folks, they burned children and women alive. When that radicalized group, Hamas, went into Israel, they did things that if you had that happen in America, If your family was, if your wife was raped repeatedly and then burned alive, and you watched your children being burned alive and tortured and stuff, and then you were killed or whatever, can you imagine the outrage we as America would have? We got totally upset when we lost those thousands of people on 9/11, and rightly so. That was horrific. But that's nothing compared to what these folks did to the people in Israel. I guarantee you, if some group came into America and tortured 1,500 to 2,000 people and then slaughtered them, dismembered them, cut their heads off, raped their daughters and their mother, the women right in front of the men and the little boys, and then brutally tortured them and killed them, do you think we would not retaliate with full force? You bet your butt I would. So everything's not like it's presented, folks. You have to accept the fact that when you're watching the news, you are being fed what they want to feed you to cause division. Their goal isn't to educate you, folks. It is to cause division. They want us divided. They want us attacking each other. They want us fighting. That's why, when the left was doing all their rights and stuff, they didn't cry out. The right cried out, and now vice versa. January 6th. Folks, anyone that thinks January 6th was an insurrection is just, you've got to be asleep. Who would try to have an insurrection to overthrow the federal government unarmed? I mean, just stop and think about that narrative, folks, that you've been told. That they showed up on January 6th, watched a 2-hour speech and rally, and then decided we're going to go overthrow our government, and yet they took and harmed not one single person, not one weapon was brought into the Capitol building. That is not an insurrection. That's a mob that grew out of control, and who knows what even happened. What was really going on that day. I think our government had a lot to do with that personally, but I don't know that. But what I do know is that was not an insurrection. Here's the reality. Had they wanted to go in there and totally take over the Capitol and to have killed senators and representatives and stuff, there was no one there to stop them. The cops were overwhelmed with the number of people, and had the intention been to go and kill people and to overthrow the government, we'd have had a lot of dead people in that Capitol building. All right? Didn't happen. We've been sold another lie to once again keep us divided. Do y'all remember when Seattle was overtaken and we had this new government of Chaz or whatever it was called? Where's the insurrection outrage over that? They overtook a city and established this false government, and the left did nothing. No one was going to do anything about that until Trump threatened to go and send some National Guard in there and get rid of that. That was more of an insurrection. When you have an insurrection, you have a group of people that's trying to topple a government and seize control. That's what an insurrection is. No one was trying to seize control on January 6th. Okay? They weren't forced out of the Capitol by anyone. They left. Okay? It got out of hand. But once again, that's that mob mentality. When you get a bunch of people together and they're polarized and they're passionate and they've been radicalized, things happen that shouldn't happen. And January 6th probably should not have happened like that at all. But anyway, folks, man, I just encourage you, do some research. Get off of Facebook and YouTube and social media platforms like that. Go do a little bit of digging. Get on some of these other venues like Rumble or these other things where they're not censoring narratives, and find out news sources and news agencies from overseas, and start listening and compare the narratives that you hear here, and you'll soon realize There's two stories being told, one in America and one across the world, and they don't match up very well. There's a lot of disparity between what the world's being shown in places and what we're being shown here in America. And then ask yourself, why is that? There can't be more than one truth. There can be more than one perception of truth, but there can only be one truth. Things happen in a certain way. People take that then and they twist it and they put out narratives here in America. America is probably, in my opinion right now, and I love my country. I gave my life, my entire adult life to this country. But I will say probably without doubt, we talk about Chinese and Russia propaganda. There is no doubt in my mind America is one of the most evil countries when it comes to pushing false narratives and propaganda. We've got a whole industry called Hollywood that's great at it. We have a whole industry called the media that does it. These are large voices, larger than any other country's voices, and we push out, I would say, probably 80% of the world's false information and propaganda. All right? Things are not like you think they are. Open your eyes, put your faith in God. That's another thing. Discernment comes through the Holy Spirit if you want to get to the bottom of things. So you need to be praying about things and you need to be connected to God. But then look at what's being reported, get it from several different perspectives, and then ask for wisdom from God to discern what is true and what is not. If you want to really get your eyes open, go look at, I guess I can't say words without this video being taken down, but things got done to people a couple years back. Go look at what's being reported on the effects of that in other countries. It's happening in America. There's been a lot of reemergence of cancers and heart diseases and blood clotting and stuff like that. Morticians are talking about blood clots that they've never seen in people before when they do their embalming and stuff like that. But what's being reported in America, we're just not hearing about it. Go over to some of the other countries that are more honest. Things are not what they seem to be, folks. All right. That's all I can say about it. It's been too long as it is, but please get your news source from several perspectives. Pray for wisdom and discernment, and use your brain, not just your feelings and your emotions. Use your eyes, use your ears, use your brain, decipher between everything, and ask God for the wisdom. Okay, we're in an age. The Bible is very clear about it. Deception is going to rule in the latter stages of this world. And I absolutely believe we're in the latter stages of the last days. So deception is going to become more and more of a thing. And you've got to learn when you hear something, UFOs. We're hearing everything now about UFOs. It's all being pushed. Stop for a minute, quit listening to that, and ask yourself, why is this becoming an issue now? What is the truth here, God? Show me the truth. Give me discernment to not let all the bombardment of the media plant my thoughts in my head. Let me weigh it out. Let me pray about it. Let me seek God's wisdom and treat everything with a little bit of skepticism. We're not being told the truth, folks. Gosh, I wish people would just understand that on both sides. Stop listening to these narratives and start asking yourself, why are they wanting me to believe this? Assume that it's deception from the very get-go and say, well, why would they be pushing this right now? Same with that barge that just hit the bridge. Don't just listen to the news and the narratives being pushed on both sides. Stop and ask, why is this being pushed so hard? There's been accidents before where boats have hit bridges and stuff. Yes, this was a major collapse of a bridge. But ask yourself, why is this being pushed so hard? Somebody has an interest in this news, this story, being pushed hard to us. And you can bet your bucks that whatever you're hearing on the news is a narrative. They're slanting it to push you to radicalize to your side, whether it's to the right or to the left. The truth is, a boat hit a bridge, and in all honesty, we, the American people, may never understand the complete truth of things. So start questioning things, folks. Quit listening to the news. I got to get out of here. Have a good day. Be blessed. Dave T1963 out.